I'd just like to introduce Patrea. Patrea is well known to the people in this university. She hails from New Zealand and has been attracted to the sunshine, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Academic Director of Simulation and Visualisation at this university, and her major interest is really interesting. It's all about visualisation in simulation. So I'm not going to go any further, and I'm just going to let you listen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll start with an apology for the weather. The Sunshine Coast is named aptly because of the fact that it usually is very sunny and very warm. Unfortunately, not quite so this week. So Friday apparently is going to be better. So it's a great honour to be here this afternoon and to speak with you and to share with you some of the things that we're doing here at the Sunshine Coast. Just a little bit more about me. Originally, I was a nurse. Well, I think I am still a nurse, but if anybody stubs a toe, you're probably better to call somebody who's perhaps got a little bit more up-to-date clinical skills. I've been in academia for a very long time. I actually came into education in 1985, which is a bit spooky when I think about it now. I've always had an interest in teaching clinical skills, and that's what we really referred to it back then. And I did my first OSCEs and simulations back in 1988. And I find it really interesting that in some ways we haven't seemed to have progressed very far, and in others we have. And it's technology, I think, that's making the biggest difference. I have an interest specifically in preparing health professionals for practice, so that people are fit for purpose. And of course, confidence and competence are two of the key factors there, which led to my PhD, which I completed about 12 years ago. I came to Australia in 2010, and I came here for 2 years only to work for Wollongong University to help them establish some simulation facilities and to work on their curriculum. And it just sort of snowballed from there, and my interest in simulation has continued to develop, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. So my current role at the moment is divided across the university. I have 0.4 of my position as Associate Professor of Nursing, so I'm based within the School of Nursing, Midwifery and Paramedicine. But 0.6, the larger portion, is across the university, based in Foshi, but as Academic Director for Simulation and Visualisation. And it's been a wonderful opportunity because I don't just work with health professionals. I work with anybody in the university that's interested in engaging in simulation. So I could work with people from law, high performance sports, science, social work, education, any program basically. So my job is to work with academics to help them to design, develop, implement and evaluate the simulations that they put together for teaching purposes on their programs. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to provide you with some snapshots of some of the programs of work that we've been engaged with here at the Sunshine Coast. And I have to say here that there are people in the audience that do know that I'm actually going to show those of you that haven't been to their individual sessions little snapshots of their work, and I'm going to be naughty and I'm going to point them out if they're here, just so that people know who they are, because if you're interested in finding more about that project, then they would be the people to talk to. So let's have a look at this. We all know that technology and its use in education has been growing at a great speed of knots. In the period of time that I've been involved with immersive simulation, the ability to, for example, capture, record, live stream, and facilitate more in-depth and meaningful debriefs has made a huge challenge, just in one aspect. We know that we now have mannequins that have actually higher levels of capability technically than we have had ever before, and we'll talk about some of that in the AI stuff shortly. So things have actually changed quite a bit. So One of the things, though, that somebody said to me the other day, and they said to me, Patrea, what do you think's going to happen to face-to-face, you know, real-time, traditional type simulation? Like, is it going to go away? And I honestly don't think it will. I think that it's our bread and butter, and there's always a place for scenarios that give people the opportunity to develop skills, develop confidence and competence, and physically doing things. There are, however, we know lots of other ways that we can augment that learning to enhance their ability to perform and to be fit for practice. So, as I said, I'm going to present some snapshots today of technology, how it's changing the way that we offer learning experiences in simulation, draw on examples here from USC and others, and I suppose the three key areas that I'm going to address are virtual reality, augmented reality, and artificial intelligence. Face-to-face real-time simulation. This is something that we do every day. As I said previously, it is something that I think that will stay with us, whether it's using mannequins or whether it's using simulated patients. It is the art of practice, and it is something specifically for undergraduates, but also in the postgraduate area, that people need the opportunity to work together and collaboratively respond to challenging situations that we hope will have positive outcomes for clients. This particular pictures here are from Sunshine Coast Health Institute, and I know that some of you will be going over there for a tour this afternoon. On USC campus here for our undergraduate programs, we've got capability of up to 20 beds for simulation, and that does include the opportunities for immersive approaches. The third year Bachelor of Nursing program is no longer taught on this campus. They are actually based at the hospital, so if you're going over there, you'll see the sorts of facilities that those students are using over there for learning clinical skills and being immersed in clinical scenarios. And these are just two examples here. The facilities over there are impressive. One of the things that you'll notice here is that these scenario setups look pretty real, and of course we know that in terms of fidelity and the connection that that has with learning, it's really important that the environments that we create when we engage in simulation is really important. The replicas or the simulation facilities that you'll see at Sky this afternoon are exact replicas, 100% of what you would actually find in the hospital setting. That includes in a fully functional operating theatre that is equipped with gases, basically the whole 9 yards. So I think that those of you that are going over there will really enjoy that. If we move away from traditional type simulation and look at face-to-face, and we talk about the use of avatars and virtual reality and some of the PC-based stuff that was really very popular around sort of the 2008, 2009, 2010, it was sort of reached its peak. This is the sort of thing that students actually engaged with their computers, whereby most of the time in terms of interacting in the environment, they would need to click on an icon or something or other like that, and then they would actually make choices about what sort of interactions that they would choose to implement in particular situations. Now, that was one of the things that was actually a little bit of a barrier for people to engage at a high level with this sort of program, and it was a little bit of a drawback. But since then, we actually now have moved into the realms of head-mounted displays and also the use of software like, for example, Leap Motion. And that gives us the ability to not only to project our hands into the virtual environment, but to virtually pick up objects, manipulate objects, and to engage at a much higher level than we would have previously with just a plain PC-based application. Now, I have to stop here to actually do a little bit of a promo, all right, so you'll have to forgive me. But one of the things about this sort of simulation type experience is that it is individual, and it is good in that it offers people the opportunity to practice until they reach a level of confidence and competence in their skill base. But it also has other drawbacks that need to be worked out, particularly when you're developing new applications. And we have an application here at the moment that's been advertised. You might have seen it up on H2 Level 2. Has anyone seen the posters on the wall that talk about the catheterisation study? Right, good. I'm looking for 20 people, just 20. There's more than 20 of you here. Pardon? No, you don't need to have a catheter put in, but that would be fun, wouldn't it? So in this particular application, what we're doing is we've put Leap Motion and Oculus Rift together, and it provides a virtual clinic environment whereby students have to go, or people have to go through the process of actually setting up for the catheterisation. That's, you know, opening the packs, putting your gloves on, all that sort of thing, and then going through the process to get you to the point of inserting the catheter. Now, it is in its first round of beta testing, so there are lots and lots of bugs. It's not about your performance in terms of your ability to undertake a catheterisation, it's more about the program. But I mention it here today because for people that are interested in this particular area, if you want to experience what it's like, and you haven't already, to have a headset on, and they're quite heavy, all right? And to work in a virtual environment like this, it would be a good opportunity to have a go. All right? So if you want to do that, pop over to E-Block on the first floor and you'll find Cynthia up there, and she's recruiting madly, hoping that she's going to get her quota. This particular type of simulation, people talk about it as being visualisation. Now, you will have heard that my title is Academic Director of Simulation and Visualisation. So what's the difference? In my mind, there is no difference. Visualisation is just another modality of simulation. All right? Obviously, because USC is promoting visualisation in its facilities and all the rest of it, they've particularly highlighted that. I think that this type of learning experience provides quite unique opportunities for learners. One of the biggest problems, though, that we have from academia is that we are often challenged by managing high student numbers, big groups. So USC is not the biggest university in Australia, and I know from a nursing program's perspective, our program, while it's growing fast, is still not large, but you know, we do have classes of 700 plus. So for an individual type learning experience like this, how do you manage 700 plus students and they all get to have an equitable experience, and then throw into the mix that half of them are actually not studying on this campus and are the footprint of USC at the moment goes from Fraser Coast to Caboolture. It is actually an issue. You know, how do you do that? So what we're doing is we're trying to work in ways in which we can actually use this technology and diversify it, capture images, export it out, and get the most people actually using it. It is not without its problems. Now, I did actually see some head-mounted display teaching approaches that were in actual fact being promoted in the United States. And they had a lecture theatre of students sitting there all tethered with Oculus Rift or similar on their heads. And I thought at the time, you know, if I was facilitating that session as a lecturer, I've got no eye contact, how do I know where they're all up to? You know, they'll all be at different spaces in the program, they'll all be doing things, potentially all caught on different problems. I don't know how I would do that. So if anyone's got lots of ideas about, you know, how you would manage this, what is normally an individual experience, and actually roll it out to the millions, I'm interested in talking about that. I think it's very valuable. Other forms of virtual reality that we play with here, this one here is Cave 1, and I'm sure you've all heard about Cave 2. Some of you may have even been down there already. So Cave 1 was the first cave that we opened here, and basically it's a 3-wall, 6-projector 2D display system. So you walk into this room and it's just got 3 big white walls, and we've got 6 projectors, 2 projecting onto each wall, and we've got a little bit of trickery and fancy software whereby we actually knit that image into a 180 degrees. It's not 3D, all right? But it is 4K. The resolution obviously is fantastic, and it still provides a very, very realistic and valuable learning experience for students. And I can give you a couple of examples here from paramedicine. We have 2 simulations that we run with them specifically in Cave 1. One of them is the projection of a train station, and they set up seating on one part of the room, and they have a simulated patient that they bring in there who has a cardiac event. The students actually get called in. While they're in there and they're doing the assessment, the train on the opposite platform comes in, all the people get out, and then it goes away again. After a minute or two, another train comes in, and the same thing happens. Now, there's a similar simulation that they do with a projection from downtown, I was going to say Queenstown then, crikey, Brisbane, whereby there is a motorcyclist who has been knocked off their motorbike. The motorbike is on the floor, the simulated patient is on the floor, there's a reasonable amount of artificial blood, etc., and they are first responders. They are actually responding to this accident. The projection that's actually up on the cave walls is moving. It's not static. We've got buses, we've got cars, we've got people crossing the road. There are people standing there staring at them. You know, why is this important? It's for things like managing situational awareness. It's for conditioning them, if you like, or preparing them for the real world of the fact that, yes, they need to be able to respond to various situations whereby they meet the care needs of somebody, in this case, who's come off their motorbike. But it's also about the fact that they work on the open road. They can't afford to be distracted in one way, but at the other hand, they need to make sure that they and their clients are actually safe. So we can create an environment like that, that is a living environment that they can work in and actually learn those skills. I have to say that our gamers absolutely love Cave 1, and if you go up there on your tour, if you're doing a tour of the campus, you'll see that there is an inordinate number of bean bags up there, and a lot of fun to actually be had. So just imagine playing your latest, your game, sitting in a beanbag with 180 degrees around you. There's a lot of research going on up there also in terms of looking at simulating environments and various activities, and there's a driving test up there at the moment too. Cave 2. Okay, so this is the jewel in our crown, and it's at the bottom of H block. And I know that most of you will probably go and spend some time in there. So I'm just going to flick through the daisies, if you like, and actually just give you some snapshots into some of the work that we're doing in this particular area. But before I do, just a little bit of info, and this, I'm not going to bore you with this, I've actually deleted a whole lot of slides on this, but just generally in terms of hardware, what we're looking at here, if you haven't been in there yet, is we've got 80 3D LCD panels. They're arranged in columns. It's 320 degrees, and it's got head motion tracking, 3D sound facilities, etc. The type of software that we're using, most of the work that we're doing is in Unity or Get Real with the Unity extension, and we do use a whole heap of other programs as well. And the best person to actually talk about that, if you want to get some detailed information in relation to the technology, is Mark Barry, who is the facilities manager for visualisation, and he's the guy that will be doing the actual tour. So let's just look at some of the examples down there. Because we're able to create 3D environments, basically, you know, it's almost like, well, you know, where does it end? What do you want? We can take 3D imagery, we can take imagery just ordinary off your cell phones and project it. We can build artifacts and model stuff and all that sort of thing. This one here is in actual fact a imitation or a replica, if you like, of one of the ward environments that we undertake simulation and clinical skills training with in E Block here at the university. Because cave is 8 metres across, we've got a reasonable amount of room in the middle of the environment in order to be able to do scenarios in that particular environment. This one here actually is also being presented later this week under the Serious Games banner. We have a induction program that this is actually modelled on. So a couple of the projects. The one I want to talk about here is drug therapy. Now you might say, well, what's this actually got to do with, you know, simulation and clinical skills, etc., etc. Well, we believe that simulation has a positive contribution to make, not only to developing people's skills, but for helping people to understand the context in which those skills are actually being applied and the theoretical concepts and underpinnings that need to inform their practice. Simulation gives us, in this case visualisation, the capability to explain things to students and to show them how mechanisms work that we can't normally do under normal circumstances. Now, some of you I know went and actually saw a presentation this morning on the midwifery one, which I'll come to in a minute, but this one here is about pharmacology. You know, who remembers pharmacology at school? I hated it in my nursing training. I ended up teaching it for a while, which I think was probably just desserts. Difficult concepts for students to understand. How do they learn them? More often or not, it is dense, thick text that they have to actually wade their way through. There are not a lot of diagrams or videos or other resources that actually show them what's happening at a microscopic level. So with this particular project, what we did was we took something as simple as receptor theory, and we reviewed the autonomic and sympathetic nervous system. We looked at how the heart functions. We looked at a case study that we used which involved heart failure, and obviously we looked at the use of beta blockers. And this here is an example. It shows a photograph of the students actually in that environment learning those concepts. Now, we decided we ought to evaluate this, and we've still got research that's going on at the moment because there is a dearth of literature in this area at the moment. It's like, you know, we've spent a fortune, let's be honest. We've got it there, we're actually now using it, but how the hell do we know if it works? So in this particular case, we started gathering data last year, and we had 316 students complete a pre-test. So all of the students that were involved had previously had lectures, online materials, etc. As far as we're concerned, they wouldn't normally have got anything extra, and they should know this content. All right? So of those 316, so we're only focusing at students here on the Sippy Downs campus, 302 did the post-test, and of those, 230 recorded an increase in test score. So after a basically 11-minute exposure, under the circumstances where they were supposed to have known all of this, the outcome was that 87% of students' test scores increased. Now, we've also interviewed the students, talked to them about their experience, and the one thing that they say consistently, and it's coming through, I just didn't realise it was like that, and it just helped me to connect the dots, and now I understand. So, you know, for me actually arguing upstairs to say, like, you know, it's a good idea that we've got this, or we should expand our facilities or increase our support resources, it's very helpful. As I said earlier, one of our issues here is USC's growing footprint. Students at Fraser Coast don't have access to CAVE. So what we've started doing is doing 3D videos and putting them up on Blackboard, etc. But in order to do that, we had to come up with a way in which people would be able to enter a 3D environment that was actually cost effective and it was portable. So what we did was we took the Sippy Downs students again, and of the 215, we only had 152 actually completely involved. But what we did is we divided the groups into half, well, not exactly into half, but into two, And one group of students had a cave experience while the other group of students used VR goggles. And this was using a 3D video. And you can actually see there, and I think this is quite interesting, that with the goggles, 85% of scores increased. So we've still got a lot of analysis to do on this, and this is very superficial, rudimentary stuff here that I'm showing you now. But what we're looking at here is, can we get as good as experience for students who are not necessarily immersed in cave? And here's a little picture of the 3D virtual glass, VR glasses that we've been using. So just at the top there, they basically just clip onto on your phone. We're using these as opposed to Google Cardboard because it's a lot more controllable. Students actually tell us that they like it. It's light, it's easy, they can adjust the distance. They talk about not feeling so immersed that they don't feel in control, and it appears that those that suffer from motion sickness, the number of people that are affected is less than those that what we would have normally. So 3D videos going up at the moment. We also have the capability to actually put them up in 2D as well, but the students tell us that they quite like the idea, that they like being able to explore the environment. The midwifery project, as I said, some of you saw earlier, so Michelle Gray and Terry Downer, ladies, where are you? There they are, up the back. If anybody's interested in this one, you should see Michelle and Terry. They've done an awful lot of work with the development team here in terms of developing a hybrid teaching approach, which includes 3D immersion in cave. And they have an avatar in a clinical environment where they actually demonstrate, and I always get this wrong, but delivery of the placenta and membranes. They chose this specifically because there aren't resources that physically show this as such. If you look at the diagrams that are in the text, they really don't give you a lot of detail. And as Michelle was saying today, when it comes to things like, you know, the homeostatic mechanisms within the uterus and the interlacing of muscles in the uterine lining, that, as we know, she does this, or used to do this, clamp down like this to actually occlude the blood vessels and prevent post-delivery hemorrhage and what have you. We can actually replicate that. We can put students inside the uterus. We can show them, with including animations, how the placenta detaches, how it and the membranes are actually delivered, and then what happens in the bed of where the placenta was, and how bleeding is actually controlled. And you can see here, here's a close-up. This one's actually a picture I realise, ladies, is a very early one because it's only got one artery, when we all know that there actually should be two in the umbilical cord. But our developer, who I now believe is an honorary midwife, has done a lot of professional development to actually get the content expertise that he needed to build this, and at the time he didn't realise, but we've since fixed that one. Okay, so another one that I want to introduce you to is what we call, it's a project called Stuck in the Cell Membrane, and Dr. Anne Parkinson from Physiology and Anatomy and her team have actually put together a suite of resources. Now, this isn't necessarily directly related to clinical type simulation like Michelle and Terry's work, which can also include the work, so can also incorporate part task trainers and 4D if you like. This is more about science, and it's about students being able to visualise the underpinning concepts that will then inform their practice. All right. So they recognised that learning biology was really difficult, and they decided that they would address three key things in the first instance. One was the cell membrane structure and function. Another one was about the movement and transport of molecules across membranes and the processes of osmosis and diffusion. They've also gone on to actually look at glucose transport and all those sorts of things. They literally took this, and this is what they used to teach with. It's very complex. And somehow or other, with the help of the lecturers, students are supposed to figure this all out and actually be able to understand how stuff passes in and out of cells, how cells respirate, what actually happens inside them. Well, if you'd given me that for starters, I can tell you now I would have failed. What does that actually mean? Well, I'm going to show you what it means. This is what it means. And this is what they now do in terms of simulating science. Every time I see that, I actually feel a bit emotional, I have to say. I wish that I had that when I was a student. It would have made the biggest of difference. And that's what students are actually telling us here. So if you want to go and have a look at that one, by all means, I'm sure that Mark will show you parts of that particular application. And I know that that team are around. If there are people here that work in the areas where they're looking at, integrating pathophysiology, etc., and how that's actually connecting with simulation, whether it's pre-work or post-work or intra, whatever else it is, they'd be happy to actually speak with you. But that gives you an example of just how we can use visualisation to simulate these things that normally we can't see and we only write about. Augmented reality is another area that we're playing with, and I know a lot of people are. It's getting a lot of traction at the moment, and rightly so, and particularly in medical areas. So HoloLens, and there are a number of other products that are actually coming out at the moment, is the key one that we've been playing with. So we're talking here in terms of augmented reality, we're talking about holograms, we're talking about projecting images into reality. And they're being used by a variety of different companies already. This one's actually from CAE, and they're actually doing stuff here whereby using the HoloLens they're able to project onto mannequins. Then that is, they think, helping people in terms of guiding procedural elements of providing intervention and helping people to perhaps be more accurate in their approach and finding landmarks and understanding more about what it is that they're doing and how they're doing it. They did a release at IMSH, I think it was, in about September of last year with their midwifery augmentation, whereby they were able to project onto the normal birthing mannequin that they have what would be seen on the inside and what was actually happening during the mechanics of labour to actually enhance people's understanding. I think this is an area that is actually just shooting away, and I honestly think, sometimes I wish I was 30, and I'm not, unfortunately, you can tell. All right, but just imagine what it's going to be like in another 5 years' time, let alone 10. One of the problems that we actually have, though, with the HoloLens is, again, it is an individual experience, unless, of course, you've got a whole heap of people with HoloLenses all wearing it at the same time. and that's a lot of money. They're not that readily available. And so, like, how do we use that? So one of the things that we're working with here is looking at spectator view. So it's an app that enables spectators to see holograms. So for example, I could actually put this rig together here in front of the lecture theatre today. I could have the HoloLens on me, and you would be able to see the HoloLens that under normal not the HoloLens, sorry, the hologram, that under normal circumstances I would only be able to see. So it is actually really good. It runs through your PC. You get really good high quality resolution images of the holograms. Now, basically this is just a rig with a bit of software. You can do it on the cheap. And I'd like to show you this, not a particularly good picture. It's actually in this room here at the moment. So again, here in pharmacology, we were again looking at cardiac function and what have you. And so in this particular situation, what we had is we had the tutor wearing the HoloLens, and because HoloLens, as you'll probably know, has got a little camera in it, and you can record the holographic image so that you can capture it. What we then did is we recorded it and we streamed it, and then we projected it. So while the tutor saw it in 3D, the students actually saw it in 2D. But which was really interesting is, as you can see in this picture here, because the tutor wearing the HoloLens is looking out to the audience, their field of vision captured the students. And the students were actually all sitting there looking at it. They didn't realise that that was them that they could see. And I don't know what they thought it was, they didn't click, but the perception was that they saw a holographic image. They felt as if the heart was actually hanging in the classroom when it wasn't. So we're actually doing work with this. The biggest drawback with it is the wearer needs to be very, very careful about how quickly they move, because of the fact that it's like being on a roller coaster ride otherwise. The images will actually just chop and change and move around, and then everybody feels sick. And when everyone's feeling sick, nobody learns anything, because we just want to make sure that we don't throw up and embarrass ourselves in front of everybody else. So what we've also done is we've just basically got a mannequin, so the torso with a head, and we've just set it up on a rig and actually put the HoloLens on the mannequin, so the tutor in actual fact is free. And basically we just interact with it, and if you've actually used HoloLens, what you'll know is we just go up to the front of it and we either click our fingers or snap our fingers until we want to move on to the next aspect that we want, etc., etc. And it's actually working really well. Students quite liked it in the evaluation, and I think we've got Anne Framp. Is Anne Framp here? Ooh, she did a runner. We'll be able to say she was absent from class. And Julie Hansen have done a little bit of a research project on this, evaluating that experience from a student's perspective. And they, I think, are going to be talking on that later at some part in the conference. I want to now just move towards, looking at the time, artificial intelligence. Augmented reality, artificial intelligence, put them together, God knows what will happen, but this is another area that is just shooting off at the moment. I'm sure you've already all met Alex, who's up on the vendor's display area. So he's hailed to be the first patient communication simulator. So as you know, he's got speech recognition, he understands English, French and Spanish, and he can see through his cameras, which is really good in terms of actually streaming that and also reviewing it in debriefing, so you can actually see yourself how you went and how you interacted with him. There are a lot of other people out there that are actually playing in this space, and the one in particular that I'm watching at the moment, and if you haven't seen this, I think you should Google them and actually have a look. And that's the Laboratory for Animate Technologies based in Auckland at the University of Auckland. People been there or had a look at their stuff? It's pretty damn amazing, I have to say, and I think the potential is there. I know that they're still working through stuff. Baby X is in her 4th generation now. I've actually just got 3rd up there. So Baby X is an avatar, and she can laugh and cry. She can detect, she has facial recognition, she can detect people's emotions, and baby X at the moment is learning to read and can speak. Now, they started off by programming chemicals, so we're talking about neurology here, in terms of replicating what was needed for emotion. So for example, they through code could actually give baby X a whacking dose of dopamine, let's just say hypothetically, and make her all happy. All right? I think this is a really interesting space to watch, because if you think about what this could lead to in terms of our ability in simulation to help prepare people to work with real people and to be able to respond when the responses are going to be not pre-dictated or meditated by the lecturer or the educator, but are going to come from an independent source. So the other one that they're actually working with at the moment is this XYZA new generation interactive avatar, which is an adult as well. So if you haven't seen this stuff, even if you just Google baby X and just do something that's quick and dirty, the YouTube videos will come up. So finally today I want to talk a little bit about digital simulation, aka serious games. And I say that because this is an area that we're working in a big way at the moment here at USC, but we're having difficulty in terms of funding sources. And it appears that we can't use the word games, because serious, as in learning, and games, particularly when it comes to federal funding, etc., do not go together. So we look at the literature. Digital simulation is a term that's used often for this area, so we're using this. This is a project here that will actually be presented later this week. I encourage you to go and have a look at this one. It's very interesting. We had a situation way back in 2014 here where the laboratory induction for students, the format was changed. Once upon a time it used to be face-to-face with staff would actually walk students through the process of what you had to do in terms of managing sharps and all those other safety things that you did in the lab context. We stopped doing that, we put everything online. And then the staff started noticing that students weren't in actual fact doing what they should be doing, and there were a lot of dangerous situations evolving. Sharps in plastic bags, that sort of stuff. So we did a study, and this is where the truth hurts. We actually found out that what we were doing didn't work at all. In fact, what we had going as far as the induction and all the rest of it had a lot of holes in it, and talking about squishies, like they were really bad. And when we interviewed the students, we said, look, we mined the data and it's really weird. We've noticed that, not just one, but like lots of students get the same question wrong all the time. Because we can actually look at the analytics in the back end and we can see how many questions they got right and wrong, which ones were the challenges, how many times they had to do it, etc., etc. And they said to us, oh yeah, we know about that. And we said, well, what's happening? Because it's not the same question. Now we've looked at the questions and they're not ambiguous, and because it was all quiz-based. And they said, oh, that's because we knew that we had to do this every 6 months. So what we did was, when we did it, we just actually copied it, pasted it onto our computers. So every time we have to do it, we just actually populate it with the same material, and then, oh rats, we got question 6 wrong, so we'll have to go back and fix it. And I was quite surprised that they were honest enough to actually say that. So what did we do? We thought, aha, you want something that's engaging, etc., etc. So we've built this game, and they are the little emoji, and they actually have to go in and navigate the laboratory, and having done their pre-work now, they have to physically engage and do the tasks that once upon a time they did a multi-guest test on. So that will be interesting. And in order to leave the game, I'll just mention this one here because this is a little bit of the gaming people will like, is that we've left the emergency procedures, which include, fire evacuation and what have you, to last. And when it is activated in the game, one of 3 things will happen. And that is either the room will fill with smoke, or and the alarms go, or there's an announcement, or there's a fire that erupts. If the student engaging in the game at that time does not leave and follow the instructions and goes towards the fire, they will burst into flames. And at first I thought, ooh, I don't know how well that's going to go down. But it's actually growing on me. So, got to have a bit of fun. We've got other digital simulations. A couple of these some of you will have seen previously at SimGHOSTS when we've been at the Serious Games Showcase. This particular game here, supporting behaviours, we've got about 1,200 students using it this next semester, so the programs mainly are nursing and occupational therapy at this particular time. And we've got a number of other games too that are being used across the university. The big issue for us is, and you might want to think about this unless your systems are different, and that is if you look at the university's IT platform, we have corporate IT, so web page, all that sort of stuff at one end, and at the other end we've got the learning management system, Blackboard and what have you. There is no way at the moment to actually host these games, and the learning management systems are not particularly happy about taking on that because it's massive, and particularly with the number of students that are actually using it. So what we're having to do is to revise our structures at the moment to be able to actually incorporate this sort of technologies. We've got students here that are presenting on their findings. I can see one just up there, one of my honours students. So that's Susan up there. She'll be presenting tomorrow, I think, on the hazard detection game, which was for environmental scans in the community. So to end off with, I want to say, well, like, you know, why are we doing all this? And we know it's all about enhancing fidelity, and we know that's about enhancing engagement and providing better learning opportunities. But one of the other things that's actually out there that I think that we need to be cognizant of, because it does have an impact, is a condition that's called aphantasia. It's also called mind blind, and it's where people are unable to create mental images or to visualise things. Now, if you're a lecturer, how many times have you actually stood up in front of a class and said, it's sort of like this, I want you to visualise? Now, this is a lot of the stuff that's written in text that's not actually in pictures or videos, another reason why we're developing the cave artefacts as we are. The reality is that while this is a concept that's been around for a long time, and there's not a lot of work being done in this area, what we do know is about 1 in 50 people are affected by it. They cannot visualise. So what I'd like to do now is I would like to engage you in an exercise. And I would like you to all close your eyes for me, if you would please. And I want you to think about an apple. I would like you to visualise, I want you to bring up a picture of an apple in your mind. All your apples, I have no doubt, will be different. Can you see that apple? Okay, open your eyes. How many had a red apple? How many had a green apple? Apples with leaves, stalks, bugs. Good apples. How many people didn't see an apple? 1. Anybody else? 2. 3? Yeah. Can I ask you, I'm sorry to put you on, what did you see? Nothing. Got black? Black? What did you say? Black? Black. Okay. It's really interesting because what they say is that if you can't visualise, there's nothing wrong with you, all right? Nothing wrong with you at all right? In actual fact, you are better at probably managing text than the rest of us. Like, you know, you would be the type of person that could sit down and read really complex, dense text and, like, get it, all right? Where the rest of us, I'd be lost. They say that usually one of 3 things happens if you don't visualise. One is you either see black, and there is just nothing, or you will see a colour, right? Could be any colour, or you hear sound. Now, I've not met anybody that's actually heard sound yet, but we had a group of students here from America just a couple of weeks ago, and one of their faculty and one of their students, we were actually playing with this a little bit, and one saw black and the others just saw the colour green. And after we obviously reassured them that they were fine, we're just talking about the fact that your brain's wired slightly differently, but it's still good. It's still good. Is that, just think about that. When you stand in front of the class, how big a class? Like, I've got classes of 700-800 students. How many of those students don't see? It's difficult for them to actually try to visualise something that they don't understand, let alone be in a position where they can't see it at all. So this for me is part of my rhetoric, my argument, if you like, in terms of actually trying to push the envelope and get people to take on board the fact that, you know, we have this capability in simulation now. Visualisation gives us an opportunity to extend opportunities for everybody. And hopefully what we're going to see is we're going to see people that understand what they're doing and are able to apply that in practice, and will get better health outcomes. So that's me, people. I'm open for questions. No, I can go and have a cup of coffee? Good, yes?
So how many different classes or programs are actually instituting this type of?
Okay, so in the little video that I showed you, I think there were 6 different science courses that were identified in there as being separate, separate. Some of those science courses are just for science programs. Others are actually connected with other programs like exercise physiology and high performance sports, those sorts of things. But we've also got nursing, we've got midwifery, we've got journalism, we've got, I can't remember, heaps, like heaps. Yeah, one of my biggest things at the moment is like, what do we develop and how the decision making is made around that. When you meet Mark, he'll refer to him and I as being a two-headed monster. You've got to get through us to actually get something developed. And basically, if someone comes to me and says, gee, I really like to build something in Cave and all the rest of it, and we say why, and they say, oh, because it's cool, I'm not interested. I want to know, what is the problem? What is it that you spend the first 4 weeks of semester going over and over and over again because they just don't get it? And that's what we will focus on, because building artefacts is people, it's time, it's money. And we don't have an endless budget. I'd love to be able to just build anything and everything, but it doesn't work out like that. Yes? We haven't had any issues to date. In fact, Terry and Michelle actually evaluated that in their class because we wondered whether or not it might be confronting, and the response was it was good. But we have been playing with it in serious games, and we've been using little compositing techniques that actually look like the avatars are not quite crisp. They've actually looked like they're actually made up of tiny wee little patches. I don't know whether that would have any impact or not, but we haven't had any feedback that would indicate that's an issue. Marcus? Yeah, like it's massive, all right? We've got a lot of external people that we're engaging with at the moment. Classical example, just down the road, Caboolture Hospital is actually working with us to visualise their new hospital. So we've got external partners as well. We're also building all these artefacts, and it's not just about where they go and how it's managed. We have a very limited income stream in terms of building all this stuff. Every time I show this sort of stuff to people, they go, oh my God, there was a guy here the other day from Sydney, and he said, that one artefact, it covers 2/3 of my semester. How do I get it? Do you sell it? Do you get a licence? Commercialisation is not the university's core business. And I'm telling you, I'm hard up against the granite wall. on that one at the moment, and we will get through it, but it is really, really difficult because there is so much that the university needs to learn about not only what's happening but the potential and where to from there. But you do make a good point, Marcus. Yeah. Yeah.
Have we got time for one more question?
Yep.
Just looking at the sort of teaching method happening.
Well, that's exactly why we're doing it, and also about accessibility and also providing equal opportunities. But one thing that's interesting, it was a very small sample, for one, but we were quite excited when we saw that because we thought, "Ooh, does this mean it's as good as?" You know, for the very reasons that you're asking the question. What happened because of ethics? We had to give those students a cave experience, and when we did just the goggles, it was the best thing since sliced bread. They thought it was fantastic. We put them in cave and they went, "Oh, no, this is not the same." But we do need to do some more work in that, potentially maybe. But they are saying things like, it's really cool because I can now revise for my exam and I can use my phone at home, I can watch it as many times as I like. So both combinations, not sure, but we're definitely heading that way. We're building a new campus down at Patrea, and at this particular point in time, particularly in the first wave, I can't see us actually having the capability to put another cave in there just now. So we definitely need to be looking at that. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone.